Do you truly control your business processes for real? In the past, data analytics was always very KPI minded. Active process intelligence basically means that you have encountered information out of what you would like to derive actions. Hello to the second part of our ValueStory webinar series today with supply chain and production. Here we are basically already at the 4 impact analysis that we want to provide. The first 2 will be talked in depth, so they have separate slides, and the lower 2 I will go now over them. So basically the first one is a purchase to pay process. Basically it was an automation potential analysis where we could identify certain automation potentials and also identified ways to standardize the process in order to have less rework. And what we did in this case, we enrolled it in one SAP system with a saving of 0.4 million euros per year. And then also here an MDAX company. MDAX is basically the German stock market index, which is holding the 50 largest companies. There we look at the order to cash side. And with this client, it was quite interesting, the analysis, because we had quite high number of internal stock transfer processes. And the client itself is having a very seasonal business. So at one time of the year, they're having like hell of a lot to do, and another time of the year, not too much. They have a high service delivery demand. So they want to get always to the closest stock they have, and they have encountered and have established a KPI to measure that. So which warehouse is able to deliver goods to the closest clients overall? And what they haven't thought of with their KPI is the internal reallocation of goods. So what happened, they have a lot of warehouses up the East Coast in the US and a lot of warehouses in the West Coast in the US. And what they did, they were always or very often supplying clients from the West Coast with goods from the East Coast because they had so many internal reallocation. And that's why we have such a high potential allocated only in possible savings of internal costs. This is not the internal logistics cost. This is only the saving potential of internal logistics cost of basically bringing the goods from East Coast to West Coast and back and forth. Now we come to the first 2 cases. In this case, it's a purchase to pay for direct materials for a car manufacturer. What we did there is quite interesting because it was also a problem of interconnectivity. So we have long-running POs, and we had a lot of delivery plans created, and it was quite unclear for the purchasing department why the delivery plans were created. And when we went to the logistics department said, okay, we need to create those because delivery plans that were existing before cannot be matched with our SAP system. The wasn't matching the as is. That's why they had to create always individual ones for every single delivery they got from long-running purchase orders. Like you can imagine, when it goes back to purchasing or back to finance, then no one knows anymore which delivery plans is connected to which purchase order. And the logistics didn't even know really that this was causing such trouble. We were able then to really funnel down those problems and issues. The second value story, it's about basically the order to cash side. And then it's a thermal insulation manufacturer in the outbound logistics, and basically it's about service levels. Sometimes if you have a certain amount of a service level agreement achievement, you just cannot explain why you're not getting over a certain threshold. So we are doing whatever we can, but we cannot go over 65 or 70% or 85% of what's a service level agreement. With the help of process mining, you directly see the entire end-to-end process. And within seeing of the entire end-to-end process, you can directly identify the biggest driver of missing the service level across the entire supply chain. And this then really helps to increase those KPIs which are still valid and still important. And the improvement potential in this case were 1.5 million euros. This is something every one of you might know, a KPI dashboard that is giving a pretty good overview over the overall idea of where my company is going, but not is giving the context around when something is declining, something is changing, why it did so. This is exactly showing the issue of where KPIs and classical data analytics approaches are lacking in contrast to a process integrated approach. Because those KPIs are looking backward towards a black box process. Yeah, a KPI is increasing or decreasing. And you can say this is good or bad. But you can't say what exactly in terms of internal processes is driving this behavior. And now we are looking into this process-driven approach where we support those KPI, those backwards-looking KPI, with the real data and the real-time data that's getting out of your system, coming out of your system. Yeah, and those data points that we are collecting can be basically out of every source system that you're using throughout the process. Yeah, and those data points and those data silos that we get out of different systems get then basically transformed into a so-called event log. And within this event log, then we have the capability to automatically derive this, what you see on the left-hand side, which is the process, so-called process analyzer. The approach basically is then in order to bring those silos together, like I described, deriving out of this event log these execution capabilities. And the execution is a suite that we are offering consisting out of 4 modules. The first one is an alerting. So you can set a threshold based on several variables and then say, as soon as this happens, need immediate information. Please alert me. Then you can go to the second base, basically, where you say, I want to derive corrective actions of it. Yeah, so I have a logic. This logic is then ordered, stored, and you can orchestrate those actions within a corrective actions management system. And then from that point, you want to accelerate it. Yeah, you can do an integrated workflow management where you really then push those information or actions, yeah, directly into backend system. So what are we having here? Basically, this was an interesting case because this was a real-world case from the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And of course, all the numbers are anonymized, but this case was basically the real case because a client of us had a lot of shipping orders out and they didn't know if the vessels, yeah, or the flights were able to unload and will able to distribute towards the clients. And what they wanted to see directly, which of my orders are still active, are still running, and at what point are they? So with the help of process mining, we could see exactly where they were looking. Yeah, they already created the billing, and what we wanted to do is now to know of which of those orders there were no delivery, because in the beginning of the pandemic, it was really uncertain how certain countries will behave. No one knew which country is closing the border. So we're saying how many corona cases are already on, how many corona cases are active within a country, and we say, yeah, the threshold may be 3,000 corona cases, just can filter it. And then we say high risk country to go to at the moment is Italy, Singapore, Spain, and Brazil. Because they have been relatively high amount of cases. This is a possible thing where we don't get our goods or we can't ship our goods to. I said before, of course, you can alert at any time with everything. I just clicked here now on the visualization, and the visualization is somehow smart because it tells me if you're clicking on a visualization and want to do an alert, it already takes the KPIs that are attached to it and also even the dimension. It tells me, of course, yeah, you might want to do an alert based on that. Of course, you can alter it, but this is exactly what I want to do in this case, where I have, I don't know, more than 10 orders open, and the number of corona cases is larger than 2,000. I want to get alerted. That's how I don't have to pull always the data out. The data that I want to have is getting pushed to me. And the last live demo that I want to share with you is basically a value stream mapping analysis. Yeah, value stream mapping is basically not only looking at our process. If you look here in the process, this is a galvanizing process of a car manufacturer. So you have different activities, and then those activities are included in the entire process. But of course, no process mining solution in the world can see if the shop floor layout is clever. So if you have a long transporting ways in between those processes, and you can see which stations are creating then issues. And if you are looking here at just the most common, the most common process is absolutely slim and absolutely straightforward. Of course, there are some waiting times, but what was quite obvious and quite interesting is if you're looking at the edges, then you're seeing as soon as you're going down, the more edges we're adding here in the back. You see directly where there was often a skipping over a different location. So maybe in this case where we have such high quantities and basically so long ways, a rearrangement of the shop floor itself might be very beneficial. And in a process analysis point of view, it's impossible to see that we have here just from a logistics standpoint, not optimized shop floor layout.